Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and hi, it's been a long time since I've done one of these. It's about time I have done one. It's a tier list video. I know, where have they been? I've clearly ran out of subjects to tier list in relation to Celtic. Hello, welcome back. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, today, once more, just like the last few days, and basically since the January transfer window shut, it's quiet. There's not an awful lot to talk about in regards to Celtic. But today, I've decided, why don't we tier list the Celtic players' seasons to this point so far. Now, I know what you're thinking. Bit of an awkward time to do this, Ryan, because we're more than halfway through the season, which is usually the point I would do this at every year. We're basically on the kind of straight and narrow to the end of the year now. There's no European football. It's just about trying to focus for that treble. And obviously there's some players who are just through the door who we can't really rate. So it's a bit awkward, but we're desperate for content. No, in all seriousness, I wanted to actually do this back at the halfway point of the season. But it's been really awkward this year because, of course, we had the World Cup coming in and kind of disrupting the season halfway through. I could have done it then, but I didn't feel like we'd quite had enough yet. I then wanted to do it when we came back from the World Cup, and I thought to myself, well, I better wait till the January window's done because we don't know who's going to be here, so there's no point in talking about some players, and then obviously players will come in and out and blah, blah, blah. So I feel like now that we've had a couple of weeks since the window's shut, the dust has settled, and we have our full squad for the rest of the season, I thought this would be probably a good time to sit and look at everyone's season so far. 25 games into the league campaign, we still have 2 possible cups to win as well, with the cup final coming up this month, and then the next round of the Scottish Cup next month. 13 league games to go, not a lot. 25 games in, that's mad, isn't it? It's kind of flew by as we look to win our second consecutive title under Ange Postecoglou. But who's been contributing the most? Well, let's have a look. Let's get through this as fast as we possibly can and talk about Celtic's season so far. I have organised it into 5 possible columns, or 5 rows, sorry, which I think basically give you a good range to go from good to bad. So we're starting off with the best at the top. That is the absolute best, the players that we could not do it without at the very top of the pyramid. Good season for those who have had a strong season, a good campaign, not quite up there with the best of the best, but certainly not bad. Okay, does what it says in the tin. Okay, not bad, not great, just very, good. Okay, fine, that's okay. And then poor season says once again, does what it says in the tin. And then finally, bin them, or not seen enough yet. So there is a couple of players that of course we've signed in January who we haven't really seen a lot of yet. And they might make it in here depending on what I think. And the only players joining alongside them were players who I think don't need to be here next season. But of course, Celtic right now are in a very fortunate, very lucky position where there's not really a lot of players like that. So I don't think we're binning very many, whereas in years gone by, we've had a lot of dead wood. But Ange has cut it. He's cut the dead wood. He's done my job of binning them. So well done, Ange. I'm going to go in the order the website has generated for me, and I'm going to try my best. And I say this every time, not to waffle. So we're going to try and fly through each player, which means we start with Lier Abada, who has probably had a bit of a frustrating season personally for him because he's not been that consistent starter that maybe he'd like to be, but that's just down to the quality we have and how hard it's been to get in the team this season. We came back from the World Cup and the likes of Dyson Maeda, for example, he's been electric, and it's been hard to kind of brush him aside to get in this team. Nonetheless, and I think maybe for that reason, a lot of people would have him down in okay, because maybe he's not, I think for some, maybe not been as good as he was last season. But let's be real, still a massive influence on this team. 10 goals, 6 assists in the 35 games he's played this season. He's only 21 years of age as well. Like, that is unbelievable. For a guy his age to be contributing to as many goals as he does, for me, he's still having a solid season. He's a massive part of our attacking line. Alistair Johnston. Now, how quick are we to throw? We could easily put him in, not seen enough yet. But let's start him off in okay, because I think out of all the January signings, we've been lucky enough to see him the most because of the Juranovic exit. He's came in to be Juranovic's replacement, and to be honest, judging off his appearances so far, you could argue he's in good, but he's not been here long enough to, say, compare him with Lier Abada. So I'm going to put him in okay for now. He's done a good enough job. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. It's a big kind of few months for him with the big pressure games coming up, so we'll get to see him tested at the kind of biggest of circumstances. But I've enjoyed him so far. Be a really good sign. I think he's the perfect Juranovic replacement. And he's going to be a mainstay in this team for years to come. Once again, another young guy. Pleasure to meet him as well. Scott Bain. Let's just put him in the bin. Okay, because, yeah. I mean, that's probably harsh, isn't it? A lot of people will be saying, oh, well. But we've not seen enough of him. And out of all the goalkeepers we have here, yeah, it's Scott Bain. Which brings me on to the next goalkeeper, and it's the who's meant to be the backup keeper, Benji Siegrist. I'm going to put him in poor season, and I know what a lot of you are thinking, right? And a lot of you are screaming at me already. Yeah, I know we've barely seen him. I know he's been injured, but can you say that it's been anything better than poor? Like, I expected to maybe see a little bit more of him. I'm not being harsh on him. I know it's not his fault. He can't help being injured. He can't help being second fiddle to Joe Hart. I can't exactly fault him for that. But I don't know. I would have liked to have seen more from him. What has he had? Like 2 appearances for the club. So I'm just going to put him in poor season. And for the backup and the third choice keeper, they're the hardest players to rate in the full squad because they don't play. We don't see them. So it's hard to give an honest opinion of them. Bernabei. He was meant to be the first team left back. He was signed to replace Greg Taylor, really. That's not happened. In fact, we'll come to Greg Taylor later on. Bernabei, I think a lot of people would actually put him in poor. Because I don't think a lot of people have been impressed with what they've seen of Bernabei to this point. He's had very limited opportunities. Let's be real. He's not had as many chances as maybe I think we thought we would have got to see of him to this point. But is that enough to suggest that he deserves to be put in poor season? Is it? I don't know. I think I'd put him in okay for now. Right at the bottom end. We'll come back to him. But if I was to put him anywhere, I think okay. Because I think it'd be harsh to say he's been rotten. There's been a couple of games, he's probably not been up to scratch. But I think other times he's looked okay. As it says in the title of the row. So I'm going to put him in okay for now. Right? I know a lot of you probably hate me for that. Callum McGregor, I mean, he's the most important man in the team. And we've seen how vital he is when he was out. For that injury, it was murder without him. Yes, we got by, we still played well, but you notice the difference without your captain, without a player. The quality of Callum McGregor. He's captain for a reason. He's a leader of this team. But technically, he's one of the best midfielders that I've seen at Celtic in my lifetime. Brilliant what he can do. He can defend, he can attack, he can shoot, he can pass. He can do everything. He's just the perfect footballer. And when this team don't have Callum McGregor in it, we're significantly worse off. We are. That's the truth. I know, as I said, we got by without him and we still played well, but the difference he makes, it's night and day. He is arguably the most important player in the Celtic team, and he goes right to the top of the best pile. Carl Starfelt still has his haters, but the facts remain true. I'd put him above Abada, actually. The facts remain true. He's been solid. He's had a fantastic season. Some games, I think he's arguably looked better than Cameron Carter-Vickers. Not overall, I just mean in specific games. He's probably been a bigger man in that match. But the record still stands for him and Carter-Vickers. This season, when they've both started a game together, we haven't lost. Not once. Which is a tremendous record. Domestically, they are far and away the best centre-half partnership in the league. And probably the best centre-half partnership we've had at Celtic since McManus and Caldwell. And maybe even before that. And I think that's me being honest, not recency bias coming into it. I can't remember a centre-half partnership which I've had more belief in. I've been very impressed with Starfelt this season. I think he's kicked on really well. And you've got to remember, this is a guy who's recovered from a big injury. It'd be very easy to put Carl Starfelt down here because he's not played as much as maybe some others. He was out for a long time. But he's came back from it brilliantly. Great season so far for him, I think. Which brings me on to his partner, Cameron Carter-Vickers. He goes up in the best. Once again, just like Callum McGregor, when you don't have Carter-Vickers in the team, you notice the difference. It's night and day. It's very, very clear to see. He is just remarkable. One, and you know, I said a minute ago about the best partnership we've had in years. He's the best centre half we've had in years, hands down, since Virgil van Dijk, almost certainly. And in my opinion, and listen, and I believe what I'm saying, he's eclipsed Virgil van Dijk, in my opinion, for what they've done at Celtic. Of course, Van Dijk's went on to be one of the greatest centre-halves of our generation, really. But Cameron Carter-Vickers, for his time at Celtic alone, compared to Van Dijk's time at Celtic alone, you can argue that if Cameron Carter-Vickers has eclipsed him. He's played well, the big teams are in the league, tougher competition. You know, he's just been so important, been brilliant as well. He's, once again, just like McGregor, he flies up there. With no doubt about it. David Turnbull, okay, and I'd put him above both Johnston and Bernabei. If I made this video maybe say 1 month ago exactly, we'd probably have put him down in poor season. But the past few weeks, he's kicked on really well. He's been unlucky as well. He's in the same boat as someone like Abada, probably frustrated that he doesn't get as many starts or opportunities as some others. But it's just how stacked the midfield is, isn't it? So David Turnbull, for me, goes right to the top of OK. He's scored some big goals this season as well. His Celtic future still very much a question to many a fan, so we'll just have to wait and see. But for me, he goes to the top of the OK pile for now. Talking about the OK pile, another guy that joins in there, James Forrest, who I don't know to put him above or below Alistair Johnston. I'm going to put him below Alistair Johnston for now, because there was that 1 month of the season where he was unbelievable. We were like, oh my God, Forrest is back. Ange has found a reliable and a consistent James Forrest. That was quick. That phase, that was a phase, Mom. That was a phase. It seems to be over and done with. The honeymoon of that resurgence, yeah, it came and went. And once again, not through any fault of James Forrest. I think that he's still given 100% every chance he's had since, but he's obviously not been in the goal scoring form he was in at that point in time. I don't think he's getting as much plaudits as he was at that moment in time either. And he's just kind of gone back to the player that he was before that wee blip of form. He's just there. He's the name that's been consistently in the Celtic team for the past decade. Not much else to it. The reason I'm not putting him above Johnston is because Johnston's came in from the start of January. He's been consistently in the team, starting, playing 90 minutes, week in, week out, whereas Forrest hasn't had that. Even in that run of form, he wasn't getting 90 minutes. So I'm going for Johnston above Forrest. But we can't. Do you know what? This isn't me trying to be negative about Jamesy. It's certainly not. He deserves credit and respect for what he has done this season, especially when people like me and so many others wrote him off. But I think to say he's been anything greater than okay would be it'd be misjudgment. Greg Taylor, he goes right up there this season. Absolutely, arguably still to this point, Player of the Season for Celtic. I don't think he will win Player of the Season. Let me just say that now. I think it will probably be Cal McGregor or Cameron Carter-Vickers, or maybe even Kyogo for his goals. I think we're one of the main guys, but Taylor certainly deserves his name to be up there. And this year he's been unbelievable. I think that he's maybe petered off the last few weeks. Maybe not been as as influential as he was in the opening half of the season. But I still think he's been brilliant. I think he deserves a hell of a lot of credit for what he's done, especially when he had a lot of doubters and a lot of people didn't want to back him. So he flies up there, most improved player in this team this season as well. Well bloody done, Greg. Joe Hart, and this one kind of hurts because I can be honest in saying I'd put him in okay. I don't think he's been anything better than the bare minimum of what we need for a goalkeeper this season, and I still adore him. He still makes some big saves, but it's not like, this point last year when I made this video, well, I think it was a bit earlier than this point, but when I made this video at the halfway point of last year's campaign, I had him up towards the top, and I think I may have had him in like the good season category and right up at the top of it, because the influence that he brought into the team and the change that we had in the goalkeeping from the year prior. He's still been great and he still deserves credit, and I love him still with all my heart, but he has had his blunders. He's had goals where he should maybe have done a bit better, scored into him. And obviously there's moments like Leipzig which stand out like a sore thumb. I think a lot of people are now on the side of the fence where they're like, okay, we should start looking for the replacement. And even though I'm not there yet, I can understand why people have got that opinion. So I'm going to put Joe at the top of the okay pile for now. Hopefully he has a big second half to the season, because he's just brilliant. I love him. He's such a good guy. He's been a real pleasure to watch in this side. Like, there's not enough good words I can say about Joe Hart. Tomoki Iwata, not seen enough yet. Like, we've not. We've seen a game against Morton, and I think he might have came on the week prior as well. We've not seen enough of him. Quite simply put. So I can't really say much about him, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've seen all sorts of him in Japan either. So I'm just hoping that he becomes a very reliable and a very key player to this Celtic side, as we know, a defensive midfielder, which is kind of what we've been crying out for. So I can't say much else at this point. Jota this season, I'd put him in good. Right at the top of good. Even though, and a lot of you be thinking, what? My God, he's amazing, he's unbelievable. He is obviously amazing, he's unbelievable, he's fucking incredible. And in my opinion, I keep saying it, I can't stress enough, on his day, is the best player in Scotland, I think. In terms of the technical ability he possesses and the overall footballer he is, I don't think many come close to him. But in terms of the season that he's had, from the start, from the very first ball kick to right now, I'd say it's been good, it's been strong, but I don't think he's been as important this year as the three guys that I've got above him. Do you get what I'm saying? Once again, nothing negative at all when it comes to Jota, but I think it is because we have that rotation in the front three, because we can bring on Maida 1 week, Abada 1 week, Jota 1 week, Haksabanovic 1 week. Like, the fact that we can do that, I think that makes it, difficult for one of them to stand up and go, yeah, I'm undroppable. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm putting him right at the top of good season for now. Kyogo is just, let's put him, he's right up. He's right up there to the best. His record says it all. I'm not even going to read out the records. We should all know it by now. He's a machine. He's not human. And for someone who was taking a hell of a lot of unwarranted criticism on social media at one point of the season, for him to go out and prove all of them dafties, deserves them to be even higher in this. Like, he should have a column, a row of his own, in fact. Unbelievable, undroppable, magnificent goal scorer. This year, showing another level to his game. Tremendous. Dyson Maida, he's been brilliant since the return of the World Cup, hasn't he? And I think that maybe with the form he was in before the World Cup, when there was a lot of questions asked about him and whether or not he was good enough, and some people were like, he's not. There was a real kind of discussion surrounding him and his quality. For him to come back in the face of that adversity and play the way he's played since, it deserves a real amount of credit. I think that he probably goes. I think that's a nice spot for him there in my list. Anyway, I love that he's done that. I stood by him. I made videos defending him, and even when it was tough, I realised that, and I could admit when he wasn't playing good enough. But he's came back and he's shown the quality of player that Ange has faith in, and he deserves a hell of a lot of credit for that. So he's gone right there in my list for me. Good season for Dyson Maida. James McCarthy. Yeah, let's put Jambo in the bin now, shall we? I love him. I do. That's the thing. I love James McCarthy. I mean, he's basically in the bin, isn't he, with this injury? So don't know if I'll ever see him play for Celtic again. Of course, he was linked with that loan move as well in the summer transfer window, but he might have got that in the January window if he never picked up that big injury. It's unfortunate for James. At any other time in his career, would have loved to have him at Celtic, but it's been a bit of a waste, hasn't it? Aaron Moy, I mean, wow. I mean, the last few weeks, you could put him up here, by the way. You could put him at number one going off the last few weeks. I think that I would put him in here for this season, just after Jota. Very strong season, very big influence on this team as the season has grown and went on. The first few weeks, people were doubting him. People were wondering why we signed him. he very quickly answered that question. He had a tremendous World Cup as well, Aaron Moy. And once again, just like Maida, it's kind of his form has grown arms and legs since he's came back. He's just such a good player. Technical ability, wow. His range of passing, wow. His quality of passing, wow. He is just one big wow, Aaron Moy, when he's playing at his best. And he's been really, really important this season. So, yeah, easy for Moy. Matt O'Reilly, he's had an okay season. I'd put him just below Joe Hart. I still love Matt O'Reilly, and I'm certainly not one of these ones who are now starting to shift on to him in terms of going, is he good enough? Oh my god. Because that started. It's just typical of social media and Celtic fans. But he's probably not had as good a campaign as maybe what we'd expected. I think it's been tough for Matt, considering he's played out of position for a lot of it as well when McGregor was out injured. But you've got to admire the job that he done playing in that role that he wasn't really familiar with, because he done a good job of it domestically anyway, done a solid job. So I'd put him in there, still solid. The assists speak for himself. I'm glad that he got a goal as well recently, because I think he's been choking for it. I think he still has that record. That was in the Cup, so I think he's still got that record of most shots in the league without scoring, so hopefully he breaks that soon. Oh, finally off the mark. I say finally, he's been here 2 fucking minutes, but off the mark against St Mirren in the Cup. And I'm going to put him in the same category as Iwata for now. Haven't seen enough of him yet, even though he has scored. Like, you could maybe shift him up to okay, but we haven't seen enough of him. And I'm liking what I've seen of him, but it's been minutes. So I'm just going to cut to the chase and put him in there. Tony Ralston, very unfortunate for him this campaign. It has been. So I'm going to put him. He's still making his way into okay for me, but it's been a very, very unfortunate campaign for him, especially after the success of last season. You know, he was so important. He revolutionised his career. He found that self-confidence again that Ange had brought back into him. This year he's just been unlucky with injury. I mean, he started off the campaign really strong as well, but apart from that, you know, we've not seen much of him. So it's been a real shame for Tony Ralston. And I'm glad that he's back now. And I'm sure if he gets the chances between now and the end of the season, we can see him much higher up in a list like this, because he just needs that game time again. Rio Hatate. I am going to put him. Oh, this is tough. This is tough, by the way, for Rio, because you could very easily make the argument that he deserves to be up there. But once again, rotation in the midfield. Do you know what? I'm putting him there. I am. I'm putting Rio Hatate up there in the best. He's unbelievable. He's a next level talent that we should enjoy while it lasts, because he's not going to be at Celtic for a long time if he keeps playing the way that he's playing. He is so good. So good. My man Sayad, even though he is my hero, my favourite, I'm going to be honest and putting him in okay. I'm not going to hype him up too much. Once again, and I feel like this has been the story for so many great players' seasons, being unlucky, injury, trying to get into the team. He obviously signed a little bit later as well, so he wasn't there for the start of the season. I want to see him in the team consistently soon. It will come eventually. He's just been unlucky, and everybody around him has been playing so well, all those other wingers. But he showed so many glimpses of how great and how useful a player he's going to be here at Celtic. I have full faith that he'll be consistently starting games next year for us. I really do. And I love him to absolute bits. So I'm just glad we have him. I always end these tier lists on like the most anticlimactic players, like Yuki. Once again, he not seen enough yet, and Stephen Welsh. Yeah, poor season for Welsh, hasn't it? He's not managed to get into the team an awful lot. Started off with a bang when he scored that goal against Aberdeen in the opening game of the season, but every time he's came into the team since, I feel like he's been, I don't want to say deserving of criticism, but it's been understanding criticism. You know, the European games, he's probably showed that he's maybe a bit out of his depth. He's probably just not good enough to play at this level, I think. And I think that's obviously been reflected in the rumours of him moving on soon from Celtic. And then Yuki, not seen enough. So, yeah. So there we have it. There is my finished tier list, and I'm pretty happy with that, in all honesty. The only 2 players that I have for the bin are Bain and McCarthy. Everybody else, I mean, that might be the first time ever I've done one of these tier lists where I've not had like a whole list of players. I'm like, move them on. When you look at everybody outside of Bain and McCarthy, you don't want to move them on, really. Maybe Welsh. We could maybe move him on. But everybody else, you want to see stay around. You know, you don't want to see them leave. So it's madness how far we've come in a squad that Ange has built. And even when you take away the ones you want to bin, when it comes to a poor season, 2 players you could argue that's had a poor season, and even at that, it's harsh because they've barely kicked a ball. So yeah, I think that's pretty mad. That's the point that we're at right now, and that's not being a biased Celtic supporter or an over optimistic, or I'm not bumming them up. We have just had a quality. I mean, we've lost once domestically, for crying out loud. How can I even fault this team? So there you go. Enjoy. See you next time.